So hello, everybody. I'm here with Anthony. He's one of the winners of the most recent Semantic Kernel Plugins Hackathon. He did a very cool project around being able to automatically create SQL queries using natural language. The one most useful for the enterprise category. So Anthony, do you want to talk very briefly about what it is that you built?
Yeah, so I mean, the whole hackathon was centered around plugins, right? And something that I've been thinking about working at an enterprise is normal users want to be able to query the data that's in the database. And typically right now, you go to the BI team and get a report to run or, query with SQL somehow. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just use natural language and it figure out, who is the last user that got added to the table? Or who's our most recent hire? You should be able to just type that in natural language and it should figure it out. So sure enough, because the OpenAI models are just so good at converting from text to programming languages and stuff like that, it's able to output SQL pretty relatively good. So I just whipped up something quick for the hackathon, and it seems to work pretty well, at least with my testing.
What would you say are areas that, if you had more time to do it, or even in your own work, how would you extend upon what you built during the hackathon?
Definitely implement some sort of token counting. Every now and then when I was querying, hey, I use an example movies database with some IMDb information. If you ask something like, I don't know, who had the highest amount of revenue or something like that, well, I mean, potentially you're going to get tons and tons of records back. And you can imagine, if you query the employees database at Microsoft or some big enterprise like that, you're going to get hundreds, if not millions of records back. And that's going to overload the context window pretty quickly. So the main thing I would do is, one, check the responses. And if it's over the context length, trim it down a bit, especially because, you're getting a table back. You just take the top X 100 rows or so. That would be the main one for me. And also, you're getting a OpenAI model to generate raw SQL that you're executing on your database. Probably isn't the best. You're looking at prompt injection attacks and stuff. So a little bit more security around there. In the connection string, you can, of course, put read only. You can run it under a user account that has specific permissions, but that only goes so far. So context length, keeping that under the max model's output, as well as setting the permissions appropriately and looking around the security.
Can you share some quick general thoughts about what do plugins enable and where do they fit into the large language model application ecosystem?
Yes, I think plugins, at least in their current state, are pretty cool because it allows this whole whole software development paradigm of this large language model shell around an app, and then you can use native code to connect the pieces that you want. For example, Copilot Chat. I can say, book me an Airbnb for this weekend, and it can intelligently figure out and create a plan around that, call out to the necessary, plugins that are built and pull in the relevant information or schedule something for you in the context of semantic kernel. Being able to create that plan and be like, hey, these are the steps I'm going to take. Is that okay? And then you hit okay, proceed, and it does it all for you. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with plugins, being able to integrate natively and have the model figure out when to actually use a plugin, when it makes sense. That's super powerful, rather than having to flip-flop between 20 different applications or Airbnb and then American Airlines to get your flight and stuff. It's all just integrated into a single app you can use natural language for.
Are there any downsides or any concerns that you've come across or you even thought about with this sort of plugin paradigm?
Oh, for sure. Depending on how, for developers, it's way easier because we know how the plugin's built. We know how semantic search works, stuff like that. The end user, if they want to know the answer to a question, they're not thinking, oh, I need to phrase this in the correct way to get a hit on this specific plugin. And that could be rather frustrating for a user when they're asking to book an Airbnb and it's returning and saying, oh yeah, I found news articles on Google for Airbnb. Yes, I think that's a major one, as well as not asking the user beforehand before it starts executing, because you could ask to summarize a certain news article and send it out to, let's say, a coworker. Well, what if it summarizes something completely different? Then you're going to get a message, why did you send me this article that's completely irrelevant to our job or something like that? So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big piece of this is even the the planning, right? And how to intelligently choose which plugins to call, especially if you loaded in many of them. I think right now the paradigm is load one plugin at a time, and then maybe you can use that one during the course of a chat. But I think the future will be like that sounds like a very manual and probably uh, you know not ideal user experience. What you want is just you enter a chat, just has all plugins, say, enabled, and then the AI is able to intelligently decide and orchestrate which plugins to use.
Which when you think about it, is absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact that it can reason with what you're saying and be able to, oh, we're gonna again go back to Airbnb. We're gonna use the Airbnb plugin for this, and then as the planner gets better and better and better, which it will, and faster. I mean, it's going to be able to reason that much better. Like already, it's performing amazingly. I mean, most of the times I'm using whether it be Copilot Chat or even Chat GPT with the plugins. I would say probably 80% of the time it gets it right, and that 20% of the time, I mean, GPT-5, if that boosted up to 95%, that's pretty incredible.
Well, Anthony, again, thank you so much for this time, and thank you for participating in our first ever plugins hackathon.
Awesome, I appreciate it, and thanks for choosing mine. The Semantic Kernel, it's an awesome tool to use. I can't wait to see how much further it goes, and hope I can contribute more.
Looking forward to it.